that said, calling to order the May 10th, 2023 Historic Landmarks Commission. And we'll start with a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll go ahead and take roll call. See, Chair Grumbine is absent today. Vice Chair House.
I am here, apparently.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dorden.
Here.
Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik.
Present.
Commissioner McClure.
Here.
And Commissioner Uli.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. If there's anyone joining us that would like to speak on general public business, not on an item on today's agenda, you can fill out a speaker slip. Currently, we do not have any virtual participants for virtual public comment. We did receive written correspondence from George Midwin of the Santa Barbara Aviation Historical Preservation Coalition, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. And I still do not have any speaker slips nor anyone getting up, so back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. I will close general public comment, and we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of April 26th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Uli, second by Drury. And are there any corrections or edits? Or
Yes, Vice Chair House, or do I call you Chair House today?
either one works.
On
you.
the second item that we reviewed, gosh, I can't see this very well. The notation about the eave detail.
What is the address of that agenda item?
130 Canyon Acres.
Do you have
Is
it
that
right
the
there?
one?
Do you have it right there?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. Yes. Yeah, number 5, I just thought it would be helpful to have just a clarification that the discussion was about the eave detail matching the detail that's on the house, and for them to study the eave details on the house and to consider some adjustments to the garage to match the house.
If that's okay with staff, let's make that correction. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ensberg? Commissioner Drury?
Yes. Under the motion on item number 1,
And the address
113,
of that
115,
is?
and 117 West Allegara Street.
Okay.
Should we not include our good wishes to the fact that they reached out and trying to be good neighbors to the neighbors on either
I
side?
think that's worth a mention, if you don't mind putting
Yeah.
that in.
That I would ask Commissioner Lundvik that he was very specific on those 3 comments.
I have no problem with that
Okay.
pleasantry being added to the motion.
Being the goodwill ambassador that you are.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, if there are no other,
I have a question regarding
the minutes?
item minutes.
Okay.
Item C under general business, sub-item 1, the request of the chair to discuss the State Street parklets and such at the next meeting.
Which got continued further because he was going to be absent today.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other corrections to the minutes, then I'll call for a vote, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take the roll call vote. Commissioner Dorden.
Yes.
Commissioner Drury.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
And Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar of today, May 10th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Uli and second by,
What's his name down there?
yeah, exactly, Butler. Thank you. There's a lot of pressure in this role.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. It was a pretty simple consent calendar, so.
First item was 481 West Mountain Drive. The project received final approval as submitted. The second item was 1524 State Street. The motion was continue indefinitely with the comments that the project is ready for project design approval, and comments about studying the planter and the eaves and gutters, providing color samples for the eaves and gutters.
And let me expand a little bit on that first item. That was Mr. Androlaitis' project with all those little cottages. And so this was only approval of the site work. He had opted, our last hearing, to come back with individual cottages or a few at a time, something like that, so he didn't have to have all of that prepared at once. So this was just for the site work, for the civil work and stormwater management. Okay, roll call vote?
Thank you. I'll take the roll call vote. Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff has two announcements yesterday at City Council. The mayor announced the proclamation, or made a proclamation for, to announce the historic, I'm sorry, I'm jumbling my words, Historic Preservation Month.
A lot of pressure on you, too.
And presented an award to the Healing Justice members who worked on the Black Lives Matter, or the Historic Black Context Statement. And then the second announcement is that we are keeping a short meeting for the May 24th full commission hearing to allow members to attend the State Street Advisory Committee later that day, where they will be presenting preliminary concepts.
Okay, and I guess you could also be announcing that the July 5th meeting is canceled?
Yes, that is correct. Due to the proximity to the Independence Day holiday, the July 5th meeting of the Historic Landmarks Commission will be canceled.
And if I
Thank you.
could add one thing, Mr. Chair, just to clarify about the State Street Advisory. So we have the appointed members from the HLC who plan to attend. And then, as we've discussed, Commissioner Ensberg is serving not as a representative of the Historic Landmarks Commission, but as a representative of the AIA. So we just didn't want to create a conflict where there would be two meetings that you'd want to be at the same place, but we just want to make sure that there's not a quorum. We're not inviting the entire HLC to go. It's just, again, for the appointed commissioners. And those meetings will be recorded, so anybody could tune in to see.
Could I just clarify? If I'm understanding correctly, I'm not on the SSAC committee for AIA. That would be Suzanne Tejada, I believe.
Oh, forgive me. I think
Yeah.
it was perhaps something, I just wanted to make, I know that you've been following it, or that there had been, that you had been participating, but not necessarily on the
Yeah,
committee.
no, and I'm
Sorry
not.
about
And
that.
I believe that are we talking about the May 22nd and May 24th meetings?
It's specifically
Or
for the
this-
May 24th. So the May 24th State Street Advisory Committee is happening in the late afternoon and early evening. And we just, again, didn't want to have a conflict for the HLC members who are participating in that. So,
And-
so there's no conflict. So we'll have a shorter, we didn't over-agendize that May 24th meeting. There's also a May 22nd meeting, as I'm aware of, and I don't have the details on that one, but it's all posted on the State Street Advisory Committee website.
Yeah, if I could just add a little more detail, that both of those and maybe Commissioner Lenvik probably knows too, but the 22nd, both of them are at the Faulkner Gallery in the late afternoon, evening, Monday and then Wednesday. And the Monday one is, I believe, just the SSAC and the staff talking about, maybe you could add, Mr. Commissioner
I'm not
Lenvik.
sure that it has been clearly explained to anyone yet, but it is identified as an as reviewing economic development trends. And I would expect that MIG, the consultant, will be there making a presentation on what's happening economically in the communities that are doing this kind of thing, creating promenades or whatever. That meeting, if I recall, starts at 5:30, so it's only inconveniencing the cocktail hour, correct? That's right. Yeah. On the 24th, that meeting starts at 3:30, and MIG will be, along with our staff, presenting design concepts. And the understanding I have is that they will have 3 concepts, and they will be discussing each of them in some detail and trying to get a consensus on one of them or parts of them put together or something. I mean, but it will be an important meeting because it'll be the first time that we are really seeing graphic presentations of State Street Promenade.
Thank you. And my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that those meetings are open to the public
All of our meetings are open to the
and they're
public.
on, at the Faulkner Gallery.
Yes, all of them are open to the public.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further announcements, we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Any subcommittee reports?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a subcommittee report, but I'm eager to have a subcommittee meeting. So I don't know
On a
if you-
particular subject?
designations. So I don't know if we can touch base with Nicole and find out where she is with that.
She is coming back either tomorrow or Monday, so we're getting clarification, so she'll be able to
Right.
respond.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes general business, so we will move on to item 1 on the agenda, which is a new item, concept review, 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard, located in El Pueblo Viejo. Proposal for a 50,065 square foot addition to Building B, Bougainvillea, resulting in a net increase of 73 guest rooms to the Hilton Santa Barbara Hotel. Project includes removal of the existing 4,700 square foot Building A, Azalea, to make way for the following improvements: an adult swimming pool, spa, outdoor fire pit lounge area, and bar. Project also proposes removal of the existing tennis courts and 240 square foot structure housing the current tennis shop. Project will require Planning Commission approval of a development plan. So, greetings. If you could give your names for the
afternoon.
record and then your presentation, please.
Good
Mr.
afternoon. Oh,
Pardon for the interruption. Staff would like to present.
Okay.
If possible.
Well, let's get their names and then
Sure.
you can give your staff report.
great. Mr. Chair, Clay Arell, architect, AB Design Studio.
Thank you.
Rob Madej, landscape architect, Bosky, landscape architecture.
Okay.
Thank you. And Megan Arciniega, project planner, the planning division. So we have an exciting project at the Hilton Resort Santa Barbara, and the applicant team has a lot of knowledge on the site, so I'll let them answer questions on details. But I did want to frame your commission in your role in reviewing this project. You've seen it once before as a one-time concept review. Those comments are non-binding, although we do have the minutes available if you want to reflect back on them. This is their first formal concept review for their planning application. They have submitted. Presumably, the next step would be completeness and planning commission. As usual, your comments to planning commission help them make their findings for approval. So in this instance, there is a specific plan for this area of the city that guides development in land use and then also design and aesthetics. The applicant team has kind of imported the specific plan portions that apply onto their plan set, so they are more legible than this copy that's up right now, and we can zoom into those as we need. But in general, just wanted to state that your comments in terms of the design and aesthetics and sight lines and all that will be valuable to the Planning Commission, so do have that in mind. I want to orient you to can you go to the last page, just the map? It's an older map, but, so if you can rotate that. This specific plan is essentially Chase Palm Park, so up to Garden Street, and then the waterfront hotel site, and then this Hilton site. So that's the area of the specific plan that the measures in this document relate to, largely to influence, that aesthetic on the waterfront and Chase Palm Park development. So if you can go to the applicant plans, I just wanted to point out where they imposed kind of the, next. I just kind of want to frame what we would like, planning staff will need for your commission to comment to the Planning Commission. It's on the second sheet. It's a large set. So on the bottom right, if you can highlight this. Zoom in. You guys can read that, right? Everyone's eyesight really good.
Maybe blow up the top half first. Assuming you're wanting us to read this.
Just a sec. Zoom in a little more as I'm going. So things such as landscaping, building height, were kind of regulated, and then view corridors. If you can see right here, so part of this is the Historic Landmarks Commission shall advise the Planning Commission on the determination of view corridors, and in no case shall building separations be less than permitted in the basic zone established for the property. We need to preserve the view corridors, signs, other, regulations on lighting, landscaping. And the uses, just so you know, that they're proposing today are well within what the specific plan envisioned. But in general, we just want to make you aware, your comments are being passed on to the Planning Commission for this kind of consistency. If you have questions about the specifics of any of these elements, the applicant team or myself can answer. And they have visual aids along with their package today to kind of present this argument.
Mr. Chair, would it be helpful to see the minutes from the first meeting?
I actually printed them out so I could read them.
Okay?
Comments from the last review were, in general, the commission is supportive of additional development in this general area for this project. This initial massing stage is important to get right. No commissioners are opposed to the third story in this location, but the commission needs to see how it will play out in the massing. The view shed study is very important, particularly for photograph number 7, taking the same views from sidewalk would be important. Overlaying the three-dimensional model of the massing from that view as well as views along the sidewalk is important for the commission to see. Provide aerial views that show how things will look in full 3D, not just looking from the mountainside. Study recessing the third floor further back and see how it impacts views of the mountains from the sidewalk. In general, the project needs more romance and/or poetry. Perhaps simplifying the project is a way of getting there. With the current design and elevation proposed, the project appears too busy and complex. One commissioner does not believe that the architecture for the addition should be different than the existing architecture. At least 2 other commissioners find that they can support the idea of the architecture being subtly different, but still of a Spanish colonial revival style. Look at the waterfront across the street as a reference and provide a sympathetic Spanish colonial revival style that is simpler than what is currently proposed. This proposed portion of the project becomes the front of the hotel and a major symbol of the hotel. Therefore, it is important to get it right. One commissioner is in favor of more color and striped awnings. The existing pattern of the building separated by space is encouraged, and at least several commissioners feel this way. Okay. So.
Does others too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not on. Sorry, now I'm on.
Just in.
I'll turn off my phone.
I'm probably going to struggle with this a little bit here, so bear with me.
We do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody, was there any commissioners who were not at the last hearing for concept? Okay. Okay, good.
Have you watched the tape?
I
Okay.
do want to just point out, but because it was a one-time pre-application review, you're still able to make
Yeah.
comments and vote.
This is
at
like a
this
new
meeting.
application.
Yeah. We pretend we weren't even here.
Yeah, I'm pretending.
We all know the project and the location, so I won't go too far into that, but here's a number of photos taken around the site. Would you like me to zoom in on any of these in particular?
Anybody? No, I think we're
No?
all
Okay,
familiar
we'll
with
keep-
the site.
We'll keep moving. I know this is your only agenda item, so hopefully,
go
we-
slow.
hopefully you don't take the whole time.
Technically, you have 15 minutes, but,
We have 5 hours.
yeah.
Please don't keep us here for 5 hours. Just photos around the site, I'll skip through these. I'm going to come back to some of the existing architecture. This is the visual resource studies that we were required to do. I don't use this very often, sorry. Where's the zoom thing?
If you want to zoom in on a particular one, hit the Z key and then
Little
draw a
touch screen?
marquee around what you want to zoom in on.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
You can zoom back out by hitting Control-0.
Nice landscaping.
Yeah,
Control 0. All right, so
Okay.
hit the Z key, is that what you
Yeah.
said? Perfect. There we go. Now, I'll start over here on the right. These are 4 key areas that we were required to provide visual resource studies on based on the EIR, the specific plan. One of them is here at the corner of Calle Cesar Chavez and Cabrillo. The other one is a little further back. One is on the wharf, and then one is way up here on the Riviera. So here they are, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is the one at the corner. This is the basic massing of the building. We actually now have renderings from this general vicinity that I'll be showing later in the presentation. But these were the basic visual studies that we did. Here's number 2, further back, showing the basic massing. Here's number 3. And then, obviously, this doesn't have vegetation in front of it, so it just looks like a white blob, but you have more renderings, so it'll look better. And then here's the one from the Riviera. So we have more detailed views of these, but these were for purposes of staff. Was it Control 0?
Mr. Chair, could those be blown up?
Yes, sir.
Maybe just
Absolutely.
1 and 2 in particular?
Well, this is 1. This, I guess I'll use this over here.
If you hit the H key, it will turn it to a hand and you can drag it over to the,
Oh, boy.
Oh, what'd you do now?
I don't know. I never use this.
and the screen is also a touch screen if that's easier and more intuitive for you.
Huh.
All right, well, I'll just keep trying this here. So here's number 2. And then really can't see anything on 4. This thing is chugging.
Yeah, so huge file.
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Did you see what you wanted to see?
Yes.
Okay.
A quick glimpse.
Feels like I've never done this before.
We have people for that.
We had put this study together early on at the last, we had this at the last hearing, but this is a survey of all the buildings along Cabrillo that are 1, 2, and 3 stories. Some are even taller. Our project is here. The orange is the 3rd story. The yellow is 2nd. Green is single story. So you can kind of just see relative to other buildings along this section of Cabrillo Boulevard. You know, our project kind of fits behind the waterfront in terms of scale and mass, behind Building B and behind the rotunda. And then down here, you got the Maramonte, or whatever it is now, and the Hotel Santa Barbara. A lot of these are closer with 3-story masses at the street. So this is just studying how we fit in terms of context to the rest of these buildings. And then here's obviously State Street down here. Can I move on?
Could you zoom in on your site and the one on the other side of Calle Cesar Chavez?
This.
Yeah. Okay, so the orange is 3-story, so,
Correct.
yeah,
So these are 3-story portions of these buildings up here.
okay.
The specific plan dictates setbacks for second story and third story buildings from the curb line, actually, which we'll see on our site plan.
Okay.
We had these diagrams in the last set as well, and they've been updated here. The building, one of the comments was, mass and studying the location or pushing the third story back. The third story is currently 16 feet back from the edge here. So we've set that back such that the rooms, the bathrooms of the guest rooms sit over the bathrooms of the guest rooms of the second floor below on the north side. So we've pushed it as far back as we could to make sure those things stack. And then here's just some of the visual diagrams that we did in sections. Can I move on from here? Or do we need
I
questions?
believe so. I'm sure commissioners will
Come
let me
back.
know, let you
Come
know
back
if they
to
have
that
questions.
if you need to.
We're not cutting into their presentation time.
And we'll take it into account.
Site survey, I won't dig too much into this. It's technical in nature. Here's our site plan. Whoops. We have a blow-up of this, but this is the area of location. We're attaching this building or addition to Building B. There's several reasons we're doing that related to building code, exiting, egress, natural gas. There's a whole host of reasons why the attachment to Building B is necessary for our project. We're removing this little Building A that's currently sitting there. That's a one-story, 8-key structure. Our building sits behind that. We have moved the building back slightly. I think I mentioned that before, but if I didn't, this building has moved back several feet from the previous addition, just again, trying to get it back. We're pushing up against a parking easement that exists here for the waterfront, and then our own parking that we're reconfiguring here. So this is starting to get really tight in these areas in order to make all the parking work. But that's our overall site plan. Demo site plan, just showing the things that we're removing. That shows the existing parking configuration. This is all getting reworked. Current site plan, which is similar to what you just saw, and this has the setbacks. There's 120 feet here for single-story structures, 180 for second story. So we're really close to that setback line right there. I gotta zoom out, don't I? Oh, Control O. I like the shortcut keys better. Whoops. Where'd they go? First floor plan shown here. So we've been working with the hotel operators and the hotel team to figure out the room mix, the key, suites and singles and doubles. So the color coding is based on that in terms of which ones are king rooms, which ones are double queens. We have lock-offs and suites. So what this has really been driving kind of the new iteration of this plan and some of the shifting around of rooms. We have the center entry point here. It's not dead center, but it's at an angle. We have a small lobby and a small bar, indoor-outdoor bar here with a large trellis and covered patio area. This will not be the main entrance for guests. Everyone will check in at the main lobby and then come over here, or they could valet and walk, but most likely come over here and park. And then this is just a small lobby. There's no check-in or anything here. These rooms are getting reconfigured and remodeled in Building B, and then we have a one-story connection here that connects the two buildings at the ground level, and then I'll show you on the second floor. Here's the second floor. What we've done here is we've created this as an outdoor connection. So we pulled the building apart from Building B a little more, and we reduced the mass in that location so we can create a sight line between the two structures. We've also created this mass to break down the length of the building, and then we've also created a break in the building here as well to create another break in the length of the structure. We looked at trying to separate these into separate buildings. That was some discussion at the last hearing. It really doesn't work programmatically from an egress and elevator standpoint. So
I'm sorry, what didn't work?
it doesn't work that well from an egress standpoint. We have to have 2 sets of stairs and 2 elevator banks and that kind of thing, so it just became really challenging. Oh, sorry. This is the 3rd floor. These guest rooms are here with nice large patios out front, and they have a nice hallway in the back with views to the mountains. Roof plan, dedicated areas for solar at the moment. We haven't figured out exactly how much we need, how much photovoltaic we're going to put on the roof, but we're making strides for that. Down below is a long kind of street elevation that shows our addition here with the waterfront on the left and the rest of the Hilton Hotel on the right. And then I'm going to go into this more in the elevations, but this is the south elevation facing Cabrillo and the existing structure here. And I have other elevations that we can look at. Okay, so zoom in on this. So we went out to the site to look around at the existing structure, and I wanted to hand these out to some of the board members. Maybe you guys can share. I don't have enough.
We don't share well.
I've heard that about you.
We learned that in kindergarten.
Yeah.
First grade.
Thanks.
You say we don't share well?
So we brought a couple of photos just to show kind of the existing architecture. This goes on to address some of the other comments. Our previous edition had a lot going on, so we've been trying to really simplify it in terms of the aesthetic. But if you look at the existing hotel, item 1 on the first page, that's a 3-story mass, and they've, we went and looked at how they're doing loggias, or how they did loggias in the 80s, and some of the upper level balconies and things of that nature. And we sort of felt like we could kind of take that approach. There's a lot of groupings of 3 and 4 bedrooms, so we've done that on our elevation as well, where we've grouped 3 or 4 bedrooms, or 3 sections or 2 sections together, which also relates more to the floor plans and the type of rooms that they're accessing on the ground floor and the upper floors. But things like these balconies that are hanging off and some of the trellis elements, we're trying to improve on some of those details with our project. And, just, so we're trying to make it look like maybe a brother or a sister to the original hotel, but not an identical twin. And not quite a cousin either, but trying to stay a little bit closer. This center part of the elevation on the south, we've clad this with stone just to create that kind of higher level finish at the middle portion. We've also done a lower roof here to kind of break down the roof mass so it's not continuous all the way across the elevation. And you see here where we broke the building apart again, just to try to interrupt the kind of repetitiveness of the elevation. And you'll see in some of these photos of the existing building that they have things like that, like right here where they're grouping, and then there's a break, and then they're grouping. So again, we're trying to take some of the elements from the hotel and not copy them, more try to improve them or interpret them slightly differently. Where we have second floor balconies, we're really trying to maybe, instead of just having a concrete plinth or deck that sticks out, maybe introduce some softer, warmer materials, add some trellises above it so it's less of a tongue sticking out with a railing on it and more of a architectural move. The upper floors, as I mentioned, are set back, and we have varying roofs here and then open railings to improve on the views. That's the predominant elevation that, whoops, that's not what I wanted. So this is the predominant elevation here, the south. It's a long elevation, so it's kind of tricky to, this thing gonna move for me. All the ground floor rooms open out into lanais that have pool access, and I'll let Rob talk about that a little bit more when we get going on that. This is the rear portion of the building. Looking north, you can see windows on the upper hallway that face the views to the mountains. Here's the connection to the existing building B, here with a nice trellis over the top of that. Let's see if this will move for me. Again, coming back to here at the entry, this is the entry to the hotel on the north side. And then you get to the west end of the building where we've kind of stepped the massing back from Calle Cesar Chavez. And then we have stair towers and other elements here. Where we don't really have an east elevation. It kind of shows up in the north elevation one, where you can have that connector piece, but there's not a real good flat elevation of that structure. Here's the west side facing Calle Cesar Chavez. These are all suites here. This little area we've filled in, we're anticipating that for utilities and pool equipment and things of that nature. So that's more of a utilitarian space, but and this will all be landscaped in front of it, so you probably won't see a lot of it. Come on. This is a big file.
Computer needs some coffee.
Yeah. So we've done some renderings and perspective studies of this, and one of the things that we really wanted to bring to the table here is a look at the entire development. As Megan pointed out, this is part of SP1. It goes all the way down here, all the way up to Milpas, and all the way down to Garden. Chase Palm Park is to the left. This is the waterfront building that we modeled in here to try to get a sense of how that is fitting with the rest of the resort. But really, this is all, even though they're separate developments at the moment, but it was all intended as one big project. So our addition kind of sits right here, kind of fills the gap between the existing hotel resort and the upcoming waterfront. So we thought this was an interesting way to look at the overall project and how our project sits inside of it. I'm gonna use this again. Here's a view looking the other direction. So again, we're sitting here. Here's the existing resort, and here's the waterfront in the future. It's on its way. And then we have 2 slides left here as part of the presentation. We have the existing photograph looking at basically almost the midpoint or center line of Calle Cesar Chavez across the street, looking back towards the hotel. So here's the existing signage that's in front. Here's the existing Azalea building, or building A, that we're removing. And then we have, so this is a before and after, so get ready. Come on. Suspense is killing us. And here's the new. So,
Can you zoom in on that?
yeah, I can. So we probably don't have all of Rob's landscaping in here dialed in perfectly, but this is how the current building would be sitting on that corner. Or the current design, excuse me.
Okay.
I will hand it over to Rob to talk about landscaping, and then I'll go through my notes, make sure I didn't forget something.
Okay.
You keep driving, so I don't have to
Oh, no.
learn all of this.
Really?
The board doesn't have to.
We have a martini,
deal with my
we have a
thumbs.
martini at lunch?
Making you nervous?
Perfect.
All right, am I changing plans? Oh, there we go.
There we go. And actually, you advance to the landscape plan. We'll come back to this. I think it's sheet 3. 4. There it is.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so we joined the team a handful of months ago, and we've assisted with the Hilton team to help distill their site program needs. Thank you. And we've continued to coordinate with AB on vehicular and pedestrian circulation elements, general connections to the site. We've coordinated with civil on preliminary stormwater, and generally worked to blend the architecture into the site. And of probably more of interest to the board, I wanted to expand on the program pieces that the main program pieces that we're working to integrate at this point. And those program pieces include this room front lanai pool that Clay mentioned. As you can see, that's the narrow body of water. Thank you. Yep. And a larger central pool that is located off of the trellis element. And generally speaking, the pools and the space around them are hotel program that they're looking to provide some unique opportunities for guests, but also simply just to accommodate the number of guests at the hotel. There's a realignment of parking circulation on the north side of the project, and we are working to generate a stronger building connection and pedestrian flow on the back side of the building. And another piece I think it's worth noting is the removal of essentially a defunct fountain. It's up now, planter. Clay, maybe you could generally speak to where that is on with your cursor.
It's right around here.
Yeah, thank you. And the adjacent paving and benches in that circular rotunda kind of paved plaza space. So at a high level, our design aim is to ensure that the landscape rhythm that exists along Cabrillo there and the continuity of character that exists through that space is held firm and improved where possible. Those iconic palms that dot the skyline and the open garden spaces, the strolling pathways are really vital components to that area, and we're working hard to maintain those elements as well. So now that we have a sense of where the building sits on the site, if we could go back to sheet 1, Clay. And then this is a high-level view of the existing tree resource on site, tree and palm resource. You can see it's coming out as a bit of a purple overlay, but that purple overlay is designating the proposed building, site walks, paving changes, grade changes where it's necessary. Thank you. Yeah. So there's the defunct fountain there, bottom right-hand corner. You see the tennis courts and the parking lot that need to be reorganized to accommodate the building. Right down the center of this section, you'll see a handful of opaque circles here. Those are all essentially a line of ficus trees, and one of AB's renderings, it showed that significant line of vegetation that runs through there. And that's a mixture of ficus and carrotwood trees. And we're proposing the removal of those trees in that location. And then the blue designation, the blue triangles, denotes trees to be relocated. And you can see there's a fair number of palm trees actually that we're looking at as a resource and asset to this project. And so those have been inventoried, and we'll be relocating those on site. The green designates all the trees that are unimpacted and will remain. The next sheet picks up on the match line into the parking lot. Again, we've got some grade change in the parking lot having to do with civil and stormwater needs. So there's a handful of trees in this area, namely paperbark melaleuca trees, that we're looking to relocate on the project site as well. We worked hard to keep as many as we could in terms of island locations, but there are just a fair number that will have to be relocated to accommodate for the reorganization of the parking lot. With that said, maybe sheet 3. Thank you. Oops. Wrong way. Okay, this is helpful. Maybe we can zoom into these if you still can do that, Clay.
Begging.
Yeah, we'll start down here. You're probably all somewhat familiar with this space, tennis courts to the left. There's that line of Ficus benjamina that run through the site, mixing in with some carrotwoods here and there. General character of those trees and that space is illustrated here. If we zoom up, Clay, that's okay. Pan up, I should say.
Actually worked better than the
Yeah,
mouse.
here's a cluster of Washingtonia fan palms, some Canary Island date palms. Again, we're looking to relocate all of these through the site. They're important pieces of that skyline landscape, and we're looking to integrate those both on the north and south faces of the proposed building addition. There's that quote-unquote fountain and those benches, which generally speaking it's a fairly unused space, and we're looking to remove that as part of this project and integrate some of these components in terms of rose garden and strolling spaces. That'll be integrated into the landscape plan in other locations. Here's another view of those ficus trees to be removed. So really not specimen trees of any note, I would say. Perfect. Thank you, Clay. Sheet 4. So at high level here, the gray opaque circles, those represent those existing trees to remain. The light green along Cabrillo, looks like that the name isn't showing up there, but along the sidewalk, that's all existing lawn to remain. The darker sections of green represent, thank you, new and renovated landscape spaces. And within some of those lighter green areas, we have some organically shaped darker green areas, and those are starting to represent some of the stormwater bioretention basins that will be required through the site. All the tree and palm symbols that you see are representing conceptual placement of relocated palms and trees throughout the site. We'll get into that further as we get into design, but generally speaking, I think this tells the story about that continuation of that palm theme running along Cabrillo Boulevard. So on the south side of the addition, you'll see the main central pool and associated deck space there. The pool is surrounded by a fairly generous planting buffer, and the plan is to enclose that with a low plaster wall with a glass railing atop to meet pool enclosure standards. And to accommodate that pool location, we will be proposing kind of a slight realignment of some of the pedestrian pathways. Thank you. You can see where Clay's hovering. There's a dashed red line that designates the existing pathway location there. Yes, so we're proposing to push that further along Cabrillo.
It is. There it is.
Dash, there's
One
those
click and it's all
dashes.
over.
There it is, yeah. So a modest realignment of pathway to accommodate that pool location. The Lanai Pool that Clay mentioned sits directly adjacent to the south-facing first floor rooms, and the aim here is to create a really unique opportunity for guests. The guest rooms we generate some patio privacy with plaster wing walls that were clear in Clay's elevations, and those rooms will be separated from the water, again with low plaster walls with glass railing atop those. And again, another generous landscape buffer will separate the pool from the planter areas and the existing lawn spaces. So we're very early in the design, but we're conceptually considering a combination of brick in the guest room patios, some enhanced paving at the entry and outdoor trellis spaces, maybe some sort of flagstone. All of this, again, tying into, I forget, what was the designation, a brother? To brother, not the cousin, yes. Yeah, tying into that existing palette that's on site from a color and texture standpoint. And likely some sort of colored textured concrete for the pool deck and pedestrian pathways. And from a proposed plant palette standpoint, we'll continue to evolve this, but we'll certainly take cues from the existing palette that's on site. The Hilton management and design teams are quite sensitive to the impact of water use in these proposed pools. So what we're aiming to do here is essentially decrease overall water usage at the end of this project. And the way we're proposing to do that, and I have a study here that I can pull out quickly and share with you all.
How's our time going, Mr. Chair?
I'll wrap up.
Exceeded
I
it,
mean,
but-
it goes on forever.
But it's a large project, so, and we have one item on
I
the
probably
agenda.
have about 30 more seconds here, and I could pass this around. But our plan here is to remove sections of lawn along Cabrillo Boulevard. Here's the existing pathway that parallels the road, and then there's a secondary pathway. And between that and these spaces,
Yeah, we can
You can put
ask
it somewhere?
City TV
Yeah,
to
thank you.
zoom in on this.
that'd be perfect. But essentially, there's a lot of unused lawn out there. And our thought here was to remove some sections of turf that are unused and gobbling up a lot of water. There it is. Thank you. And create more robust landscape planter spaces and essentially create some demonstration gardens for what a successful coastal garden could look like in these spaces, but still maintaining that green space, that iconic green space along Cabrillo Boulevard.
What did you say that terracotta color represents?
Yeah.
That would be lawn removed.
Okay.
Yep.
And replaced with?
And replaced with drought-tolerant
Okay.
landscape plantings, yeah. And generally speaking, we're able to reduce the water usage by about a half an acre foot with
Okay.
all of the proposed pools and landscape developments with attention to these landscape areas. So moving forward, well, I should also say that one of the benefits of doing this as well, of course, there's the water piece, but there's a fairly dated landscape in front of many of these buildings in this space. And so treating these areas as renovated landscape, I think will go a long way to providing some site continuity in front of the buildings as we run down Cabrillo from the existing structures to the new structures. So we'll be able to have a strong planting palette connection between all of these spaces. I think
Did you go over your notes?
that covers the majority of it.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I went over my notes. I just wanted to note one thing. We are not proposing any stripes on the project at the moment.
okay.
Just so you know. Just wanted to make that clear.
Not proposing any stripes on the project.
Not at the
Not
moment.
yet.
Not at the
Not yet.
moment.
Okay, if that concludes your presentation, we will go on to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll turn to in-person public comment first. If anyone in the room would like to speak on this item, please fill out a speaker slip on the other side of the room and turn it in to me. I do already have 2 speaker slips, so first off we'll have Manley McNinch, followed by Alex Perez.
And you can go up to the podium over there. Make sure the mic is turned on. The little green light will come on if it's on. Good.
All right, thank you everyone for your time today. Now it's really green, better yet. One thing, this is really a light spirit in here, a lot of humor going on, it's a pleasant change. My name is Manley McNinch. I'm a special representative with Southwest Mountain States Regional Council of Carpenters. And we're here today because we live and we work in the general area and stuff, and usually when these big projects come in like this, it's going to generate a lot more traffic and everything during the actual work cycle. And we're trying to get awareness brought to how much more pollutants and everything else come in along with these size projects during the construction phase. We all know once it's open and things will tend to taper down. So we like to try and get the local cities and different municipalities to start implementing a local hire clause into any of these projects that are getting passed. And we're trying to lift the people in the community up, the workers and stuff. The workers that are out there right now cannot afford to stay in a hotel like this. Most of them can't afford to stay in a Hampton Inn, leave alone this. And that could be changed by changing some of the requirements on projects in the city. And if we start implementing a requirement for prevailing wage type wages and local hire, it would start making it to where the people that live in the general area can start having a better lifestyle for themselves and their families. They could start getting health care. That's a big thing. There's apprenticeship. We need to upgrade the training and everything. And with the accredited apprenticeship programs we have in place out there, it assures people of having a better chance at having a career in life instead of just bouncing from job to job, working basically on a race to the bottom of society. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Alex Perez.
Hi, my name is Alex Perez. How are you guys doing today?
Just fine, thank you.
Good. I'm also a special representative with the Southwest Mountain States Regional Council of Carpenters. I've been a member for 20 years, and I've worked from San Luis Obispo to Tehachapi in different times. We're trying to implement the local hire, like Manley said, in not only Santa Barbara, but Ventura, Oxnard, and to get our people to work closer to home or in their own towns. And, the money that the developers bring in to the cities hopefully could stay in the same city, so we get local hire that way and the money stays in the city and you guys get a better tax base. And also, as a council or a union, we are starting to instill career connections programs in all the high schools that are involved with the CTE programs to get young kids into careers with good paying wages and benefits that hopefully have local hire clauses on them or projects. So the kids that are graduating from high school and bounce, like Manley said, from Starbucks to Target to, In-N-Out, instead of that can go into a career right out of high school or maybe 2 years after or whatever, the case may be. Not all students go directly to a university. Get these guys in a good paying career. After 4 years, if they graduate the apprenticeship, it's $100,000 a year with benefits career. So, I mean, this is a good path for the students coming out of our high schools that don't go on to universities, things like that. So we're just here to try to bring awareness for that with you guys and the Planning Commission and the City Council and everybody else. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And turning to virtual public comment, if there is anyone participating on Zoom who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, we did receive written correspondence from Stephanie Papayanis on behalf of the Southwest Mountain States Regional Council of Carpenters, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. With that, back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'll close public comment and open it to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Drury.
Yes, could you tell me the space between the, I think, the north sidewalk on Cabrillo Boulevard and the pool?
It's roughly 120 feet.
How much?
Roughly 120 feet. So that setback line there. The pool.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's not the pool enclosure, though.
No.
The pool enclosure's down here.
Yeah.
So maybe
80
to
feet.
the scale, 80, 70 feet.
Okay,
75.
thank you.
62 and a half.
Pardon my interruption. To the applicant, can you make sure your mics are on?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a question. It might be a bit specific for this point in the conversation, but is there, like, I'm seeing the lanai pool and these fences and gates in front of each door, and it just, that seems to me to kind of spoil the concept. Is there any other way around that, or could you expand on that?
Essentially, no, for pool safety standards and enclosure, a 5-foot barrier is required at all locations.
And you still think that's a nice idea, even though you have to have that?
Yeah, we've looked at this a number of different ways, including some renderings. We're happy to share that in the next go-around, but there are actually some exciting spaces. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, I'd like to expand on that because I didn't really understand these lanai pools. So how deep are they?
They're 3.5, 4 feet deep.
Okay,
Yep.
so they require a fence. And then they have direct access from each unit or something?
So each
And
unit.
could you zoom in on
Yeah.
just a small area so we could see the layout?
Yeah. So each unit is
Why don't we go to the airplane?
Sure.
I think it's a little,
Okay.
sorry, 1 second, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, essentially each unit is has direct access to the water, and essentially there's, generally speaking, a shared wide step that they can all step into.
Okay.
Okay?
And then the pool enclosure is south of what we're looking at right now. It's-
That's right. It runs through essentially the center of that landscape buffer, that landscape
Maybe you
planting
could, yeah,
space.
pan up. and-
There it
okay,
is.
So there it
Yep.
is. Okay.
Right.
I didn't realize.
And Chair House, could I ask a question on that line
Certainly.
as well? So once you go in the water, everybody's together. So you're only separate, you've got your little deck there where you can be, but, and then your shared step going in, but then once you're in there, you're free to go wherever and you're with everybody else.
With cocktail.
That's exactly right. So anybody
Choose, not required.
who enters the pool area can access the main pool or these lanai pools. That's right.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Still on the pool enclosure, do you have any details that show the elevation of that? I see where it is in plan, but I'd like to see, have we reached a stage where there's an elevation that shows what that is?
Not at this point,
Not at
no.
this point.
What you're saying is a plaster wall up to a certain height and then
Yeah.
glass above that,
If you go to
5
the
feet or
last sheet,
something?
Clay.
If I'm standing on Cabrillo Street, am I seeing a plaster wall or am I seeing landscaping?
Yeah.
You're not going to see anything
front
in
of
the Cabrillo.
Yeah, so this is a diagram speaking to this, the conceptual layout of this pool fencing diagram. And so that the blue dashed line that runs along the outside edge of the pool, that's intended to be the low-slung plaster wall that runs all the way along the face of the Hilton. That would be recreated through that space, but we would get that, so it's about 2 feet tall. And then so we'd have a 3-foot glass railing on top of that to meet our 5-foot pool safety enclosure. Those yellow lines that run off of there to the left and to the right, I thought is that maybe those are a wrought iron type of style fence through there, and where the landscape can run right through, straight through that successfully. The zigzag line that runs along all of the privatized patio lanai spaces, that also would be a low plaster wall with glass atop, and that low plaster wall is actually from a maintenance standpoint to keep the water and splashing off of the glass piece. And then we will be required to separate the outdoor bar space and kind of lounge area underneath the trellis, the dark blue, from the main pool area. So all of those colors together give us our 5-foot pool enclosure through that space.
Another question. Cabrillo is the seafront, and I know that the city of Santa Barbara has adopted a sea level rise plan. Do you know do you have anticipated where the sea level will be in 50 and 100 years?
Well, if you can answer that question, then.
Well, the city of Santa Barbara has a plan.
Yes.
I mean, they have,
Do we know how high the water's going to get?
we know what the city of Santa Barbara projects it to be.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so we do look at existing flood and then projected sea level rise. Because of the way the site was built up, it's not in a low-lying flood area. A lot of it goes into the bird refuge, which is further down.
Okay.
So it's not, this site is not subject to flooding because of the way it's been historically built up.
So if we overlaid the city of Santa Barbara map of the seafront in 50 and 100 years, it would not impinge on this.
It's not in the hazard zone, the coastal hazard zone for
Okay.
sea level rise. Doesn't mean it's not in the tsunami zone or other zones.
Yeah,
There's a lot of coastal hazards
can't-
out there.
you can't blame a tsunami on these guys.
Other questions?
I
Commissioner
have-
Commissioner
Can you
Butler.
go to the landscape, page 4, please? I think it was page 4 on the landscape plan. Yes, on the far right, I think that's the east side, there's that large paler green section, up from that. Keep going up, keep going, right there. What is that?
That it's intended to be an artificial turf gathering flex space.
Artificial.
Artificial turf, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Actually, I had a question. Staff, is it possible to bring up the elevations we saw at the last review so we can kind of make a comparison of what we were commenting on?
I have a question as well.
Okay, Commissioner London.
Do you have a plan which shows the existing plantings along the frontage of the existing hotel, in particular the palm trees?
We don't have a plan per se that inventories all of that.
When you look at, I don't have it in front of me here, but you have taken photos of the front of the existing building. And you could bring those up, I assume. And we would see, I think, a relatively heavy planting of palm trees. I mean, it's quite robust along there. And I'm not sure that I see that same kind of planting along the front of the proposed project. And
Photos in your architectural plans
Yeah.
show that?
Mr. Chair, I was just looking to see if it had it on a survey, which it doesn't.
Yeah.
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, I do have the plans from the August 17th meeting
Okay.
available whenever you want to see them.
Maybe go to.
I mean, we can start seeing in that aerial photo, you can start seeing the palms that are running along the front of the building there. And when you go and look at a photo from the street or across the street, I think it would be interesting for us to see that again.
Does your photo board have such a picture? on
Yeah,
it?
they do, and I forget the number of it. It's 7 or something, I forget what number it is. But,
Here's the existing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but if you could get down at people level, eye level, street level, with one of your existing existing condition photos, you can go down the street then further.
Can't move
I don't think
a stationary photo.
Well, but on your early sheet that had all the photos on it.
Yeah.
One of those.
Trying to get.
There
There
you
you
go. There's the roundhouse in one.
You know, even number 1 is the starting point. It's a, you know, but was that number 8 as well? I can't tell from here.
No, that's.
No, that's not. Go to 1 again. That's again at the corner. But there's one that's really, there's a shot that's across the street and looks down the existing run of buildings.
26, maybe?
Yeah,
7 looks like a good one.
this is, you know, we're across from Palm Park.
Right.
We're down the street from.
Yeah,
Chase
okay, we're
Palm.
across from Palm Park. And while you have identified the lawn in front of your building as being dated, I find that surprising because that's basically all of what Palm Park is. It runs from State Street to, you know, whatever, is lawn. And yes, it's dated, but when this project was approved 30 or 40 years ago, there was a real effort to mirror what's happening on the south side of Cabrillo Boulevard with the new development. And the large setback of, well, that's another question. So you've answered my question.
Well, let me answer that question. So essentially, when I said, or clarify first and foremost, I'm not referring to the lawn as being dated. I'm referring to the planting buffer that sits between the existing buildings and those patio spaces and the curvilinear walk that runs out there. These areas, these planter spaces are dated.
Okay.
That was the reference, has nothing to do with.
When you say dated, are you saying that there is
The landscape is aged.
age, it's
and
age,
and needs.
not necessarily a bad selection of material?
No, there are pieces that work, but there are also
Sure, well.
pieces that need to be renovated.
Yes.
A bunch of dieties, it's got lots of deadheads in it and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Could we see this area in the plan view, or the site view again, please?
It's this area here.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you finished with your question?
That's what I'm talking about, yes.
Okay.
That is a real good example of what I think we should expect as you continue the development along to the west on Cabrillo Boulevard. We shouldn't be disregarding what's happening in this unified specific plan development, expected to change now as we change a use, on one end of it. From
Could I add a question to your question comment?
Okay.
Could we go to, I guess this, the plan here that you have, the black and white, would be okay. And maybe remind me again, I understand in this project that there is a public park, so to speak, between the sidewalk and somewhere between where that walkway is. So could you, that was part of the condition of this project, that there is this big lawn area there that sort of looks like it's part of the hotel, but it really is a public park. Could you speak to that?
Not it. I can speak to it a little bit if we can pull up the survey. You're absolutely right, and I want to speak to kind of both of those points. That was the intention of the specific plan and why this is kind of codifying what the vision is for the area overhaul. overall, sorry, in the area. And to Commissioner Limvick's point, that was one of the specific plan requirements that, so landscaping along Cabrillo Boulevard shall be compatible with that of Chase Palm Park. Existing mature and healthy trees shall be saved and included in the landscaping design or as provided within the development plan approval. So it was an intentional move to make sure that that portion mirrored Chase Palm Park on the beach side, ocean side. And then as far as the public park, yes, so there's an easement for the public space in front of that, and that corresponds to also the large setback. And the reason why there's that 120-foot setback for buildings is to give space in that area. Those paths are public. And there's a lot of history on this.
I know.
Proceed that. So I just want to acknowledge that you're correct. That was very intentional, that it's built in to be a public use of that space and to be integrated with Chase Palm Park.
Thank you. So that would be, but you're talking about these other planted areas that are behind that, closer to the building, that you're saying have plantings that maybe need some refurbishing.
That's exactly
But you're intending to keep those planted areas, but to bring
Increase
them.
the size of those and upgrade them.
No, they're taking out lawn. Where's that pretty
Oh.
picture
Well, that,
where you're taking out lawn? You're taking out lawn to save water, to put that water that you're saving back into Lanai pools that are in front of 14 rooms out of the 60-year building, whatever.
maybe
Just
we
send
could go back
TV
to the,
if you
to
can.
the,
Overhead.
oh, is it the orange?
Oh, pardon me.
Okay,
So everybody can enjoy it.
Sure.
okay. So is it the orange area then?
So, yes,
Yeah,
that red
is-
area is a section of lawn
Okay,
right on the north side of that curvilinear pathway.
right.
Which, in our opinion, feels like an underutilized section of turf area.
And it has nothing to do with the public park
No, it's
lawn
out-
area. This is completely separate.
outside
It's
in
part of
private
your
land.
area.
That's right.
And you're feeling like it would be a good idea to not have lawn and to replace it with plantings that might be compatible or similar to those others that we were looking at, only they would be refurbished.
Exactly, and of course, all of the lawn that remains from the road edge all the way up to that space remains as is.
Right, okay, thank you, very helpful.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is the circle architectural feature with the no longer fountain in it, is that part of the public space?
There's a dashed line that ran straight and just kind of was tangent to that curvilinear path. So that line continues across where that fountain is.
I see.
Actually, it's on the screen right now. So that's the park setback.
This line,
Yeah, I believe so.
that's the easement, that's an easement.
Right, which would be an easement for public park perhaps, but it's just tangent to those curving paths. So that's what made me think it was.
Sorry. Does not want to cooperate. Oh, trying to find 12 on here. Bear with me. Can you guys read that?
Yeah.
The easement for the purpose shown below and rights incidental thereto as shown or as offered for dedicated on the recorded map shown below. Oh, that's
Park
clear
and
as day.
recreation.
Purpose, park and recreational uses and pedestrian access, storm drain and street widening, parcel maps. Yeah, so that does appear to be the park easement.
And we're outside of that easement.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a couple questions, not on this, on the building.
Yeah.
Could we go to one of the elevations? Or actually, the plan, I'm sorry, the plan. I wanted just to understand the breaks in the buildings, which they look like they're recesses. They're not actual breaks. You've kind of recessed it back, is that right?
That's correct.
So we could look at that and how
Commissioner Ensberg, before we proceed, would it be useful to look at the elevations from the last time around so we kind of see
Sure.
the progression?
I guess, although, as I understand it, those were comments that weren't really, they were like free
Yeah, but we want to see if they
information.
responded to our comments at that time.
Because we did ask them to try to mimic the pattern of the existing a little bit more and break it up, and so I think this was what
And
they
give
were.
it more poetry.
Yes. I won't mention the other thing, but,
Not on it.
yeah, go ahead. So if you want to go to the elevation, sure.
So is this one of the previous elevations?
Yeah, yes, this is the, one of the previous
Oh,
elevations,
plans.
and you can direct me to zoom in or.
So if you
however
could
you'd like.
zoom in on that. So you want to tell us kind of how it's different than what you're showing us today?
Bring up those elevations as well, just to quickly compare.
So similar to the existing hotel, we tried to group certain rooms together and create loges, and this is the old one. So
Right.
in the old one, we had a lot more movement, a lot more variation in arches and roof elements and trellises and things of that nature. Larger windows in the middle there on the center bar area. Just had a lot more going on, and shutters and things like that. So on the new elevation, we've based on some of the existing hotel and what we analyzed from there, we've sort of grouped rooms together. So you have 3 or 4 or 2, and just tried to create a rhythm with two different variations, basically. So we've toned it down. So trellis is very similar to trellises on the existing building. The loggias are similar, but just a little bit different than the existing building. And so we just try to simplify it and tone it way down.
And then at the other end, where it comes, the other break, well, besides the central joint piece, where it comes to the existing building, that was the other spot, right?
Yeah. So we tried to break down the mass and separate that further from Building B. So there's a 1-story, well, that's actually 2-story, but the upper story is exterior space. So I don't have the cursor, but behind that palm tree on the second from the left, or right there, right in there. So that helps create a little view corridor between the two buildings.
And can we see the previous?
I'm not driving, so. Here we didn't have some of the rest of the building drawn on Building B, but it's in that location that pulled away and broke down in mass.
Okay. Okay, and then, thank you. Then the other piece I was wondering about was in the, where the angle, the section, the central piece, on the 3rd floor, you have a number of vertical windows.
Oh, elevation here.
On the south or the north?
Both sides have it. So it looks like a hallway going through with these windows on either side, or doors.
1 second. Might help explain this a little bit in plan
Okay.
before we go to the elevation, but
Yeah.
we're trying to break the building apart, but we still need to maintain circulation, and we have our elevator coming up here. So there's a small elevator lobby, and these 2 walls, we're thinking could be like a steel window system that it lets a lot of light through, so it looks really transparent as a design element on top.
Right.
With a lower roof, so the roof kind of disconnects from the left and the right side. So it's more of a enclosed breezeway, if you will, and that's our concept for it at the moment.
Right. So could we look at the elevation
Yeah.
now and last time? Please.
Do you want to drive that one? Okay. Right in the middle, yeah.
Go further, those 3 right there.
Where those 3 big windows are is this is the previous view.
Okay, and now we can see this is from the north side.
Really. Maybe try to go to the other elevation sheet. Page 20. Yeah. That's a little more clear than the last one.
And then the two in the center are doors.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Those were my questions.
I have one question. All the unit doors, are those sliding doors or are those swing doors?
Good question. I think we have them sliding at the moment.
Okay. I guess that's all I wanted to ask about those. Any other questions? Commissioner Butler?
Have you, wall color, what are you proposing for the actual color exterior of the building? The current building's kind of pink.
That's a good question.
It's kind of pink.
It's kind of pink.
It's really pink.
1970s mauve.
It's
There's a rumor
ugly.
that there's a rumor that the resort may go through a paint job overall. So we would be consistent with that if that gets determined. So
So you have not addressed the
not
color
yet.
question?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
No, Lee.
wanted to know what your inspiration for the stone-cladded walls are,
And those just occur at that hinge element?
and the little gap further
Grabbing
west.
this one. Hold on one second.
I thought I noticed some also in the building gap.
Yeah, just Santa Barbara sandstone. Felt like these elements could feel a little bit upgraded here at the lobby, and this recess just separating out the material. Doesn't have to be stone, but it was just a thought that we could incorporate some of that here.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just one. Those,
Okay.
all right. Those four big windows on the second floor in the, I guess it's an atrium or a lobby, are they pierce through all the way to get light from the north side?
Yes.
Just for a little air? Okay, thank you.
One question on that. Are they operable? Not that that has anything with.
They're hard to reach, so I don't know if operable makes any sense there.
Is that a two-story space?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. I was thinking, right, okay, never mind.
So there's a two-story space on each side of the building. So you come into the lobby and there's a two-story space.
Okay,
And there's a bridge that connects it,
okay.
connects the two wings.
Okay, well, we'll move into comments. Who'd like to go first?
I have a comment.
Commissioner McClure.
Okay, back to the lawn, spanning the north side of the existing second sidewalk away from the street. I know it's in general, removing lawn's a good idea, but in this case, I don't support it. If you look at the overall, the lawn bypasses the north walk most of the way along the project, and the water savings, I don't think is commensurate with the loss of the look that the public gets to enjoy. So I'm just going to comment on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Butler.
I questioned the lanai pool in its entirety. I don't remember seeing that on the original presentation. But I would just say it, as a former lifeguard, the idea that every room on that stretch has access to that shared pool area. It takes no time for someone to exit into the pool area, unknown, undiscovered, plus the utility of it. So I just question, you have a large pool there, great, that's fine, big pool area, you can secure that. But essentially what you've created, not you individually, but what exists is an unsecured pool. Meaning that if any one of those rooms that has access to that lanai pool has a door open or whatever, that's an unsecured pool area, and I have concerns for that. I also question it, the water usage, et cetera, and the actual usage of it. So my first question is really targeted around the practicality and the safety of the lanai pools at all.
Actually, that brings up a good question. I think you've referred to it as an adult pool. I mean, the main swimming pool, is that right?
Mr. Chair, the thinking operationally on this addition to the resort is that it's more adult focus.
Okay. Does it
Families and kids
exclude-
would use the other pool on the other end of the property.
Okay, but the rooms in this addition, would they exclude kids, or there could be kids there too?
I don't know if you can actually exclude people
Yeah.
like that, but intentionally, operationally, they're intending this to be more adult focused. So there may be kids there at some
Okay.
point, yes, or teenagers.
All right. Comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lenvick?
I find that the pool development on the Cabrillo side of the building is contrary to what the intent was of the development of the hotel, the original hotel, and that was not to have the public out into this green space between the building and Cabrillo Boulevard. What we've got is a huge trellis structure with a bar there. We have an enclosed pool area with, with a plaster wall, a low plaster wall, and glass probably to keep the breeze out. And you don't find that any place along Cabrillo Boulevard now.
Yeah, you do.
Yep.
Well,
Several.
But they're not in a specific plan.
yeah, I don't know that, I can't drive by any place else on Cabrillo Boulevard and see this. Some of the hotels that are down west of State Street, Harborview Inn, some of the smaller hotels that are further on to the west have pools, but that's really not part of the Palm Park scenario that was expected in this original specific plan and development. And I would certainly not be supportive of this thing out there in front so prominently. It just, to me, is not consistent with what was originally intended for the development of the Fess Parker Hotel, as well as having Chase Palm Park be reflected in the landscaping that was being developed for that hotel. So I find it to be a difficult thing to approve.
I think that begs a question of staff, whether or not there's anything in the specific plan that this pool is not consistent with.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, not off the top of my head, but I'll go back through and look.
It's really a planning commission. I mean,
Yeah.
if we are simply looking at it from the standpoint of architecture, I would say, well, you probably got the architecture right for that. But the planning and the history of the development of the Fess Park Hotel did not include this kind of stuff out in front.
Well, I think deferring to the planning commission is the
Yeah.
right move on this.
I also don't think it excluded it either. So
What's that?
I don't think it excluded it either, just for the record.
So for a point of clarification, if you want to pull up just, it's the second page. So parcel A is the subject parcel, and the allowed uses, the first one is hotel or motel or pool, which is, motel is consistent. But then it does go on to say also conference center, restaurants, cocktail lounge, lounges, stores, shops, health club, recreational facilities in conjunction with the hotel, automobile rental in conjunction with the hotel, bicycle rentals, and ancillary uses for the purpose of the hotel or operations. So I think that's included recreational facilities. A pool would fall within, similar to the existing tennis court. But it doesn't expressly say pool. To
Well,
that
and all those things listed are within buildings.
point. Yeah.
It says tennis there.
Recreation and tennis.
But I think in terms of the aesthetic design, so the comments would be, whether it's an appropriate aesthetic, right, for this area, if it's consistent with the park and
Well, we can weigh in on the aesthetics. We'll let the planning commission deal with
The use,
appropriateness of
correct.
it.
I was alive when Fess Parker's project was approved.
So was I.
So was I.
Yeah, and I can,
I was too.
I can remember
Were
the,
you on the HLC when it,
probably the planning commission, I don't know. I mean, ABR. I remember the public coming unglued with the thought of a development along there, replacing the vagrants and the roundhouse and all that stuff. And they became a real effort to respect Chase Palm Park's public use on this side. And that meant that the motel rooms, that was the edge of the private development of the park. And now we've got this thing extending out 100 feet or more beyond the rooms. To me, it's not consistent with what the public was expecting when they finally got the Fess Parker project approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, Commissioner Jordan.
I have a comment. I want to acknowledge the public comments that were made at the beginning of this. I recognize the logic, the educational, the environmental, and the economic aspects of the argument that was made, and I do take public comment seriously. I also am not at all sure that what they were bringing up falls within our particular purview. So I simply wanted to acknowledge that and not let them think we were brushing them off, but I don't see it as part of our purview.
And fortunately, they'll be making their presentation to
Yeah.
Planning Commission and City
Yeah.
Council as well, more appropriate purviews.
I have one other comment on this,
Okay.
more germane to this. I recognize the concern about the projection of this pool area into the lawn area. My own sense, and I'm down there on this stretch of beach quite often, my own sense is that the public is really on the ocean side of Cabrillo, and that's the most heavily used. And I think it is an issue for the Planning Commission, but I am willing to consider what's been presented to us and let the Planning Commission resolve it. But I don't think it is as much an encroachment on what is publicly used space currently.
Thank you.
Mr.
Other
Chair.
comments? Commissioner Uli.
Specific plans are very useful when they articulate what the expectation is, but unfortunately, 30-some years ago, specific plans were a bunch of bullet points like we just saw. It wasn't a site development plan that locates specifically where things are to be located. So in my mind, this site can contain all or any of those features in that bullet list wherever the design team and developer wishes them to be. Personally, I don't have a problem with hotel recreational facilities facing the street because it engages the public going by in a hotel environment, and they might say, "Oh, honey, let's stay there next time. That looks like fun." So I have no problem with these features facing the street. I know that through the design effort and through our various comments along the way, as this thing moves forward, we'll work out what all of that is. But I do have a couple of specific comments, and one of them starts at the mid-break. So if you could go to your proposed elevations in the mid-break.
Sheet number. Hey.
Good job.
You're getting better at this. It's additional skills you might put on your resume.
Driver's lessons.
Are you hiring?
No, I'm not. But I'll keep it in mind. All right, so This I'm having a little trouble with this midpoint. The upper story windows, I think, are the wrong proportion. They don't seem right to me. You know, maybe they need to be more vertical or lancet in shape. I also have some concern about the stone cladding. There's just something about it that seems maybe too contemporary or too mountain-like. You know, I'd expect that, you know, on a hotel like at Yellowstone or something. And if you wanted to use stone, it would seem to me that you would have a rough edge, and that edge would meet with plaster or something, so it looks like it's, you know, a ruin of some sort. But I'll probably be on the losing end of that vote. Also, your trellis work, with my maintenance hat on, know that the maintenance of these buildings are really challenging, but to the degree that the trellis work and lattice work can be wood, would be good, but that might be a maintenance struggle. I don't have a problem with the water feature at the Lanai, but probably would suggest it be a fountain of some sort. So the water feature is still there and enjoyable, because I think that is a very interesting kind of relationship between those patios and the feature, which would eliminate the safety issues and other things, and you'd have the water feature. But I remember, as a side story,
They're not all connected from unit.
I would leave that to the designers. I'm not going to design it for them. It should just be a fountain feature and not a pool feature. Although that's not going to stop the kids in those rooms from getting in the fountain, but that's a parenting issue, not a design issue. So those are my comments to start with.
Okay, thank you.
I have comments.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair House. Well, first of all, I want to always thank you for the presentation. I think, you know, this is an addition. This is an addition to an existing hotel. So I think that's important. We're trying to tie into an existing, because we're doing an addition. So I always am very interested in the resort idea. And I brought my fun book, Grand Resort Hotels of America, which is a really fun thing to look at. And each one, of course, is very different, like, as mentioned, like Yellowstone or Ahwahnee, or, you know, all of them have very, very unique qualities about them because of the location that they are. So I just urge you to really think about resort. And to me, when you think about a resort, you do think about pools. So I like the idea of the pool in the front there. I appreciate the lanai pools. I don't think are needed. I would say that the water feature is the Pacific Ocean. You're looking out your window, and there is the ocean right there. So I don't think you need that lanai thing. I'm concerned about all the ins and outs and the stairs, and it's very complicated. I think there's more power to just not having that element and just let the ocean work for you. You already have that for free, practically. And I like the pool. I think that's really nice. It tells you, as I think Commissioner Uli said, as you're driving by, you know, you want, and like these grand resort hotels that we all love so much, you see them and you're like, oh, let's go there. Book me now. I want to go to that place. So what are the things about a grand resort hotel that draws you in? Well, pools, things like that, and dare I say, awnings, you know, striped awnings.
I knew it.
But if you don't want to do the striped awnings,
I knew it.
if you don't want to do that, I mean, when I was driving here today, I was just coming down, the sun is just, you know, glorious out there, and I'm driving down, and I'm looking at this building with these beautiful turquoise awnings right there, and they're all just popping out, they're beautiful, and they just give that pop of color. So, you know, maybe it could be something like that. And but again, you're dealing with an addition, so then maybe as the hotel in its entirety is considering maybe repainting or whatever down the road, maybe they think about, you know, tying all this together at some point. So I also agree with Commissioner Uli about the stone. It feels a little bit, I think you're trying to emphasize that area, and I do think that that central area needs, that's where you can get more of this resort thing going. It needs more power at that location. Maybe the roof needs to be higher there. Maybe the tower of the elevator needs to be higher. But something, it just, that's where the, you know, the central connection, that's where it's telling everybody, go here to come in the building. So I think you could do something more to emphasize that central entry, what I call the hinge piece. Let's see if I have anything else to say. I'm a little concerned about the glass. You know, when you do the pool, maybe you could do wrought iron or something else. You know, I just think the glass doesn't really feel as good. Maybe with the wall, the plaster wall, and then your landscaping, and then maybe just a wrought iron element above that, if that's what, you know, to keep the visual that you can see through. And then finally, I guess I'll just say that I think there were some things about the previous version that kind of worked better. Those, especially where that joint, those pieces where you were trying to separate. For some reason, when I look at the two elevations, you had like a little roof going, so it kind of broke up the piece a little bit better.
A gable end or something?
Yeah,
there?
yeah, right. So there was something about that part of it. You know, you have all the elements clearly, and you've gone to the, you know, you brought these pictures for us to see, remind us of the existing hotel, and you've got all the elements. I just think again, I think maybe a little bit of editing might help. And can I borrow this for a sec? So even here, in this picture here, see, you've got this railing now. Just imagine awning up there. Fantastic. So I think that is all. But I think you're going in a good direction, and I appreciate the work. I think it's going to be really great to have it there, and I think, you know, having that pool out there will just kind of draw people to it, and I think you're doing a good job. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury.
if I may, well, I agree with most of the comments of my fellow commissioners. As I wrote down, it's not a modest proposal, which it certainly is not. I would like to see also some more poetry in that you have an opportunity away from the rooms themselves. I think that central break, you could do some good stuff there. I agree with the idea that the stone cladding is a non-starter for me. I also wrote down awnings, yes, because I do think that awnings, because you're close to me, you know, this thing. Although you don't have the gavel. Yeah, the idea of awnings, I think, are you going to explore that at all? I mean, the idea of awnings? Because I think that they really do kind of make or break, striped or non-striped. But I would appreciate you at least exploring that idea. I think that if Commissioner Uli was talking about those 4 big windows in the second floor, I think they need to be worked on. I think that they're just too industrial. But I do think that you have an opportunity for something other than stone cladding, something classic, whether it's Spanish modern or something along that line. What else did I have here? I do appreciate the idea that the water usage will be less. Whether if it pans out or not, I don't know, but I hope that your numbers are right, and it will keep Mr. McClure happy. But I agree also that you're operating in good faith, and I know you're striving to get something that's really a benchmark, that really has a presence that is probably a little bit better than the existing development. That's kind of my feeling, and you have the opportunity to do so. I do agree that the original iteration was, in some ways, had more poetry than the current proposal, so it may be a question of melding both of the ideas and trying to make us all happy, which of course is impossible. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll add a few comments and try and summarize those. Let's see. Well, this would be the beginning of a motion or comments for a motion, and that would be that we very much appreciate the presentation is very thorough and complete and comprehensive, and we appreciate you addressing our comments from the last review. As far as specific items, removing the lawn, there was at least one commissioner that was opposed to that, but I would concur that keeping that continuity of the existing appearance is important, and I would favor that. So I don't know how to put that in the motion. Well, let's take a straw vote. How many approve of the idea of removing lawn?
On private property, I think if they want to reduce the square footage of lawn, they should be given the opportunity to do so.
I agree.
Could I just add a comment that I appreciate what Commissioner McClure said. Aesthetically, the continuation of that lawn going through to the other side of the walkway up to wherever the existing planted area. I like that. I think that's a more appropriate way. So I'm
I'm not
agreeing.
totally clear on that. So it should remain lawn or just
Well,
lawn to the
Well,
existing
what
walkways?
Commissioner McClure said was to keep the lawn that's there now, so
Yeah.
it's on both sides of
That's
the
what I thought.
walkway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would say in the comments, the commission is split on the idea of removing lawn. On the lanai pools, some commissioners feel they're not necessary or potentially a hazard. The main pool, at least one commissioner was opposed to the location of it, but otherwise there was support for the location of the main pool. As far as the hinge element in the building in the middle, there was little support for the stone. And in general, that is a very important element and needs to be restudied and has a great opportunity for really distinguishing the building, and it should be considered whether or not that element should be taller than the main roof ridge instead of lower. So there are opportunities there which need to be explored. And there was support for awnings in order to add color to the building. And my comment that nobody else brought up would be that I noted on the windows on the second and third floor, maybe it's just the third floor, they're divided lights, but all the sliding doors are one light. And that might be consistent with the existing hotel, but I don't necessarily want to continue that. I would.
I would agree.
Okay, so we would prefer to see divided lights, and maybe those would be swing doors. That would be more appropriate than sliding, but it should have a more traditional feel.
Chair House, could I just, since you're talking about windows, there was one other thing I wanted to mention, back to that question I had about whether those windows were operable or not. I remember when the first hotel, when it first was built, and I remember being over there in the bar and along that area, and I was really disappointed with the fact that the windows were not operable.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, this isn't very Santa Barbara in my mind, where we have these wonderful ocean breezes and we have this opportunity to really be sustainable and use that natural ventilation.
Yeah.
And I know it's not part of the aesthetic, but it is, very much part of the experience. And it's just so delightful to be in spaces that have this natural air flowing through. So I think even though those windows are higher, it could be a great advantage to you to have them be operable. And then on that third floor, having those all be able to open as well, so that you just are walking through and you really do feel like you're outside. So I just wanted to throw that into the mix as well.
Commissioner Lenvick?
Yeah, as a thought regarding openable windows, when the rotunda was first was completed and occupied, the wind was blowing through there uncomfortably, and they came back and requested that all of those arched openings in the rotunda be filled in with glass. So the wind became a problem. And if you're up on the second level of the rotunda, you can't cocktail up there. It is much too windy.
Hang on to your hat.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing, can you close the windows when it's too windy and open them?
Well, let's just keep that as a
It's
comment.
not our job.
Yeah.
The other thing, Mr. Chair, I would hope that we would see a continuation of the pattern of the palms running across the front of this addition.
I would agree with that. We would like to see a continuation of the pattern of the palm planting across the front of the project.
Are you through, Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury?
Yeah, yes, I am also, I just wrote down Lanai Pool, no. I forgot to put that in.
Well, I said that
Yeah.
a number of commissioners were opposed to the Lanai Pool, so. I think is that everything, pretty much?
Did you finish yours?
Yes, I did. It was really just about the window. Okay. So that would be our comments, and this would be a motion for indefinite continuance
I'll move.
Mr. Chair, could
to the
I,
Planning Commission.
but before we continue, would, there was a lot of discussion going during the comments. I just want to make sure that the secretary captured everything. All right, then we can continue with making the motion.
Okay, so it would be indefinite continuance to
you making the
continue on to the Planning Commission next? Do you want to go to the Planning Commission next, or, yeah?
And then in that
betcha.
case,
Better hurry, 'cause
I'll move to approve.
no, the,
You
Second.
made, okay, motion?
Per the, to approve the project per,
No, we're not approving.
Pardon?
We're forwarding it
Indefinite
to Planning
continuance.
Commission
Oh,
with our
to-
comments.
okay, to move it, the project to move forward to Planning Commission with the comments
Yes.
that have been made.
Second.
Motion by Ensberg, second by Uli. Roll call vote, please.
pardon,
What?
can we hold up for just a moment? So if we're continuing this to the Planning Commission, there was an element that we wanted, the Historic Landmarks Commission needs to advise the Planning Commission on.
Okay.
So the Historic Landmarks Commission shall advise the Planning Commission on the determination of view corridors. I don't know if you wanted to add a comment in there for the Planning Commission, since this is, since the project is going there next.
Well, we said in the last review that we thought that it was an appropriate development, and so I think we've always been pretty much okay with the view corridors, that this isn't a major encroachment on them. So we are supportive of the massing of the building.
Can we just add a comment to the motion that the commission is supportive of the view corridors as proposed?
Exactly.
And should we add something about, because we did make mention of the positive of possibly going higher in that middle section.
I did say that.
So that is stated, so that would
Yeah.
also be in keeping with this view corridor issue.
Yeah, because that's not a prime view corridor in
Okay.
that little notch there.
Okay.
And that reminds me, I did have one more comment. Doesn't need to get into the motion, but there's been some comments about the previous had more poetry to it, and I would disagree with that. I mean, I didn't study this new proposal before coming here today because I kind of wanted to see what you had to say about it. But definitely, that was a requirement or a request from last time. And so I can see that it's simplified, which is what we asked for. And the fact of the matter is, it's just a long building, and, you know, we're going to take heat for it. There are going to be people that are very unhappy about this, but I think that this is the right direction to go, to just tone it down and be simpler and quieter.
I suppose if they don't like it, they could fire us.
Yeah.
For the staff, would it be helpful if that view corridor was something like there are no negative impacts to the view corridor, or something like that? Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
And if we can add some additional comments, just going through the project compatibility findings, you don't need to make the findings at this time, but just comment on whether or not the project meets these findings, and we can go through them.
Well,
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So that we find that the project is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the location of the project within the city, and that is compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood, and that it is of the appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale, given the project location. And that we find that it is sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historic resources.
I think we
I
should
don't
say
think
it's
there
not
are,
relevant.
there are not any.
Was that-
Mr. Chair, it is relevant, so Chase Palm Park and.
Okay.
Oh, okay, all right,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. And that the public views of the ocean and the mountains are preserved, or
Not
it's not impacted. Okay, that's better. And then, and that the use of the, and that it is appropriate open space and landscaping.
I would rather say the project responds appropriately to views.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's more
that's good.
appropriate.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so
Thank
may we
you.
have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take the roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All righty, moving forward. Sure.
Good luck with that.
If you could adjourn the
Good to see you.
meeting.
Oh, yes, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you so much.